Romance in RPGs is a hot topic lately. After the amazing success of Baldur's Gate 3, the recent debates of upcoming Avowed that will not include it, and of course Dragon Age Veilguard, on which many fans of BioWare games put a lot of expectations concerning romance. But why is that?
Gods, I want to ride you till you see stars.
Hi, I'm Not-a-witchr, and unlike the Witcher Geralt, I never hesitated when choosing between Triss and Yennefer. I do like relationships in video games, and I should say that I've been happily married for more than 20 years already, and my wife has always been my best friend and my gaming partner. That said, in every RPG where it is possible, I always engage in romantic relationships, because I want my characters to be happy, and I can't imagine them being happy without it. Maybe one day I will roleplay a miserable loner, but I will not enjoy it. I'm gonna try to define where it all started, remember the most important milestones, and share my humble opinion about the romantic themes in RPGs. Maybe not all of them, but those that I played or at least know of. So, back to the beginning. By the way, I'm talking specifically about RPGs and not all video games, so I will not mention Super Mario and his princess, and also those weird Japanese games from the 80s. Also, I should mention that some games see romance as an option for the player to get married without any previous and following stages of relationship. And while it technically probably counts as romance, I don't think that it's what gets most of us excited about in-game. That's right, I'm looking at you, Skyrim. And also Fallout 2, where your romantic options include getting married to a complete stranger who will follow you everywhere before stupidly dying in any random battle, and having one-night stands with many different characters, including a giant super mutant. I would say that the real romantic relationships wasn't actually present in RPGs before 1997, when, many of you know that, Final Fantasy VII came out, changing the world of gaming and not only JRPGs. It had a kind of a love triangle between the player protagonist and his two female companions, the theme that much later became arguably one of the main reasons of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt's popularity. And after the remake of Final Fantasy VII in 2020, Cloud, Tifa and Aerith really shook the throne of Geralt, Triss and Yennefer as the most famous love triangle in gaming. But let's get back to the turn of the millennium, when the two of the most important RPGs of this list came out: Planescape Torment and Baldur's Gate 2 Shadows of Amn. These two games defined isometric RPG genre for many years, and I would say that they are still the best RPG games of the 2D era. And both of them have romantic relationships with your companions, but each has its own approach. Planescape dives deep into dialogue interaction between the Nameless One and Anna the Tiefling, or Fall from Grace the Succubus. And Baldur's Gate has not just two but three romanceable characters for male protagonists, and even one for female player characters. Although I always thought that in this game, male protagonists have an unfair advantage, not only in quantity but also in quality of partners, because Anemone is a very annoying, pompous braggart at the start of the romance, and can become even worse during his personal quest.
I prithee, my lady, it fills me with no small amount of wonder that you have not asked me of my journeys ere we met.
My wife still holds a grudge on BioWare for this. 2 years later, RPGs entered the 3D era with Neverwinter Nights, and apparently romance was not invited, but it still tried to come anyway.
Lord Nasher has chosen to let me live, for now at least. I am glad, if for no other reason than it gives me a chance to see you again.
Unfortunately, it shows in the quantity and the quality. There's almost no romantic content up until the second expansion, Hordes of the Underdark, when we finally have some viable characters for romance, but it's still nothing to write home about. In 2004, a French game called Fable came out and gave us an option to court almost any minor NPC and some unique ones.
I'd like to be your wife.
You just have to keep making flirting gestures and give different gifts, and voila! You may marry them and live together in a house and even have sex. But there is pretty much no dialogue involved, so if that's your ideal model of a relationship, you may be disappointed in real life. Also, you can have up to 5 marriages at the same time, one in each town, as long as you can afford 5 houses. Also, there is a bordello, and you can even own it, making the sex free of charge for you.
But I'm forgetting my manners. My name is Madame Minch. Welcome to the famous Darkwood Bordello.
And all that in a cartoonish video game in 2004, mind you. Fable 2 came out 4 years later, making things even more, well...
Okay, but only 'cause it's a biological imperative.
Now you can have protected and unprotected sex, which leads to getting pregnant or getting an STD. And also you can have sex outside of marriage.
Under the sea, could you cheat on me?
And even organize orgies with NPCs that you invite to your house. Yeah, it's definitely a French game series. But back to the topic of romance with some conversation. Neverwinter Nights 2 in 2006 tried to improve in that department in comparison to the first game, but it had only one female option, a bit underwhelming if you ask me.
Sometimes I just wonder what's to be gained by you throwing yourself into situations like this again and again. I know the King of Shadows must be stopped, but I don't understand why it always has to be you.
And one male option. By the way, my wife says that the romance with Cassavir is not that bad, even though he is a classic paladin.
There is something I must tell you before this battle is joined. I wish to thank you for all that you have done for me.
But the Mask of the Betrayer expansion gave us romance of the highest quality. Only 3 characters, it's still just an expansion, but the writing, the personalities of your companions, it was almost comparable to Planescape Torment, as was the whole vibe they tried to recreate.
If you relax your eyes to the shadow, you see the true depths of the artistry of these mosaics. Some written in ash, others in shale, slate, and dyed tile black.
And then, in the end of the year 2007, the age of BioWare began. Mass Effect had fully voiced dialogue and a great cast of interesting and romanceable characters.
Me? I am afraid I am not very interesting, Commander.
And then it was Dragon Age Origins in 2009 and Mass Effect 2 in 2010. Specifically, it was Mass Effect 2 that brought RPG genre to the mainstream gaming and cemented in the minds of gamers the idea that RPGs with companions must have romantic options.
Bite me, Garrus. Better yet, bite her. Probably how she likes it.
It does not matter that, after all that, following BioWare games were met with somewhat more critique than praise and quite mixed player feedback. BioWare was a real trendsetter for romance in games, and this is why these days we are looking forward to their next game, Dragon Age Veilguard, with hopes and worries. BioWare's games, I believe, are the reason why Bethesda just had to include some romantic elements in Skyrim.
Well, yes. Why wouldn't I be? Are you interested in me?
But in Skyrim it was more like in Fable.
I'd like to be your wife.
Well, marriage mechanic is okay, and the option to have your spouse follow you as a companion is nice, but I'm sorry, Lydia, we just have almost nothing in common. You like your Jarl and your axe, probably. And I like women who have some original thoughts about the world and can have their own opinion if I tell them to stay at home. Then, in 2015, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt began to take over as a new trendsetter in anything's RPG-ish. I will not bore you with what you already know, otherwise you would not be watching this video, but the fact that this game was and still is a major influence is undisputable. I think it's partially responsible for the romance and marriage options that Ubisoft included in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the first Assassin's Creed game they count as an RPG. Of course, nothing very deep and mind-blowing on the romantic side, as was the whole Odyssey's writing, for my taste. And of course, Assassin's Creed Valhalla also had to have romance, but it sure could be more, well, more, not that much of a romance in such a gigantic game. Here are several honorable mentions, although it is not a competition.
In some ways you make me feel weak, like I'm caught up in the wake of our destiny. But at the same time, you make me feel stronger, more alive.
When I heard you were... I knew I'd missed my chance to tell you I had fallen in love with you. That you were in my every thought. That whenever I could, I kept you in my sight just to know you were there. That you had become everything.
Someone sounds a little nervous. Well, you've got nothing to worry about. This is the happiest I've been in a long time. I'm out here with you. What else could I need?
Alone? Together? You and me? I love that. Lead the way, Chief.
What can I do for you, my lady?
Nothing. You've done enough. And now I'd like to reward you.
Maybe we rent just one room.
Good idea. Noah has 2 twin beds in every room. We'll save some money.
And I just had to mention Banisher's Ghosts of New Eden. Of course, it has only one romantic option, but it has the best romantic story in gaming, for my taste.
I love you, Red McCraith. But when it comes to ghosts, your heart makes you reckless. It's dangerous.
There you are. I've been waiting.
2023. All that was before just pales by comparison to the romance powerhouse that is Baldur's Gate 3. You all know them, you all love them. The relationships in this game is on a whole new level. Except maybe for Halcyon romance, which starts so late in the game that even the famous bear scene feels a bit not enough. By the way, when me and my wife played for the first time, we were kinda disappointed that the game did not let us have a romance between players like in Divinity Original Sin games. So she chose Halcyon as her mate, and as she was playing a druid, the bear scene felt very appropriate when she told me that they both just turned into bear forms, even if the game did not show it to us. That is what I call role-playing. So that is what was before. And after all that, the opinions of gamers are divided. Some think that romance is essential in RPGs. Some say that they don't like romance and prefer games without it. And a big part of RPG fans seems to be okay either way. This is where I come to Obsidian Entertainment. It is a really significant RPG developer that gave us many amazing titles, but in the romantic department, their games are surprisingly modest. For example, Pillars of Eternity had romances only in the second game, Deadfire, and I always felt that Obsidian only included them because the crowdfunding backers demanded it.
I'll go ahead and say it. You're halfway toward all right.
After the game director of Avowed, Carrie Patel, stated in the interview that the game will not include romance options, it raised a wave of discussions in the gaming community about the romance in games in general, like, do we really need it? I was upset when I read the headline, but then I read the actual arguments that Carrie Patel made in the interview. We are building thoughtful relationships with our companion characters. Wait, are you telling us that thoughtful relationships and romantic relationships are mutually exclusive? I pity the people who had that kind of experience in their love life. But then Patel said, I feel like if you're going to do it, you really have to commit and make sure that you're giving all to fulfilling that in a way that feels both true to character but also creates an engaging player experience. Yes, I 100% agree. The romance must have a good writing and some impact on the gameplay, and only then it feels like the natural part of the role-playing game. The thing that many gamers have against romance in games is poorly done romances, when all interactions boils down to a specific choice in the dialogue, which comes with a big heart, so you would not miss it.
Do I get a kiss from the feisty temptress when I present her with the hard-won prize?
If you want. I'll even let you choose where I plant it.
This is where BioWare let us all down and we didn't even notice. In the first Dragon Age game you had to read your character's lines to understand what you are going to say, but with the invention of the dialogue wheel, all interactions were made so consumer-friendly that you didn't actually have to think at all. You only had to choose the overall tone of the protagonist's behavior, and they will do all the rest. And the romantic option in dialogue in those games is the only thing that you had to do to start romancing someone. How is that a thoughtful relationship? Basically, BioWare gave us an option to get laid. And yes, making a good romance in role-playing games is hard for the developer, not just for the writers, I understand that. But here we are coming to my main point. If the game is a role-playing game, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit old-fashioned, but in this kind of game I expect some possibility of playing the role of the character I control. Meaning choosing their behavior, not just being their muscles and reflexes, like for example in Assassin's Creed Origins. Yeah, some gamers consider this game an RPG. And role-playing may have some restrictions when your protagonist is an established character, like Shepard or Geralt. But when you create your character from scratch, choosing their race, appearance, backstory, shouldn't you expect an opportunity to role-play some version of yourself? I think it's what most of us do at our first playthrough in a new RPG. And for all of my characters, romance is a part of life. So when a game tells me to hold my horses because nobody in the world of the game is interested in my character romantically, it's kinda disappointing and sad. I still hold a grudge on Obsidian for not including romantic option with Parvati in the Outer Worlds, while the part of her personal quest is setting her up for a date with a character that we first meet after she joins you. So why them and not me?
Thanks for hearing me out and giving me counsel. And, well, for being a friend. It means a whole lot. You're good people, Captain.
This is why we gamers that like romance in our RPGs look forward to playing Dragon Age Veilguard, but fear that BioWare will just repeat the Dragon Age Inquisition's approach to romance. Which is at least something, but of course not a worthy Baldur's Gate 3 successor. Well, I'm not saying that all RPGs should also be dating simulators from now on, but the more depth a game has in its story, the more depth it should have in all of its aspects, to really feel like a rich and vibrant world worth escaping to. And that includes a basic human needs of finding a romantic partner. So what do you think? Thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing. I'm still Not-a-witchr, and as always, take care and farewell.